What is up, everybody? Calling all angels. We are here again, Wings of the Angels, talking about the last week of NWSL football. And big week this week, 8 big matches, lot to go over. Gonna try to knock them out here really quick for you. Let's talk about all of them, starting with the Gotham FC victory over Kansas City Current. Ended up being a 2-1 victory in spite of Kansas City basically leading from the jump. Amelia White scoring in the literal first minute of the match off of a Croy Bethune pass. And you figure, okay, Gotham's on the back foot. How is this going to affect them? Well, the short answer is it'll affect them for about 12 minutes. Mitch Purse levels the game. And then Sam Kerr, proving to be the best investment Gotham FC has made this season, picks up a goal in the 41st minute, and score is already done by the end of the first half. Gotham was going to try to expand the lead, but a goal was denied by VAR about an hour into the match. The bigger issue coming from this more is how this affects the standings long term. Gotham ends up, by the end of this week, being pretty far clear of some teams as we approach the 2/3 mark of the season. So while it is still possible they go cold, this sets them up quite nicely for probably a top 2 finish, if not an outright number 1, and owning the Shield. So, yeah, being the Shield winner, being the true champions in my mind of a season, is a monster deal. And yeah, Gotham has definitely established themselves quite well through this. Meanwhile, Kansas City continues to not have full control of their own destiny, as teams with matches in hand could start sending them backwards. They could be as far as 8th or 9th if everything played out. So definitely some actions Kansas City needs to make. And yeah, there's a lot. There is a lot for them to do. Gotham still things to do, but they gotta be feeling better after that. Utah Royals getting themselves back to their winning ways. Pick up a big win against Bay FC. It was a little up in the air there for a little while. It was a back-to-back here. Karin Lema scores for Bay, and they can't even celebrate it for very long as Miyabi Moria picks up a goal 1 minute later. Narumi Miura puts Utah in the lead a few minutes later, and then before the half-hour mark, Heather Gilchrist has leveled the game again off of an assist from former Angel City Kennedy Fuller. And game is level for a good while there, and it's looking like it might be more points dropped for the third place team in the league, only for a VAR to come through. They end up deciding a penalty kick is needed. Mina Tanaka scores a penalty kick at 79th minute, and that's pretty much that. Like 3-2, quick and decisive finish there. And just like that, Utah, for a moment, was actually technically occupying second. But realistically still had another game to go with the team who was actually occupying second. But the margin has narrowed. Utah finds themselves very much in a position where they might be able to claim a top 2 spot, which is extremely important because top 2 means you're getting 2 home games in the playoffs potentially. And since the championship is neutral site, you functionally get the same advantage as the Shield winner. So that chase is very important. We'll see what Utah does. Bay FC kind of continues languishing near the bottom, but they've looked a lot more competitive, and I think they'll be pretty satisfied with how the last few weeks have gone, even if there haven't been as many victories. Seattle Reign getting a 1-0 win on Chicago. This ends up finally happening in the second half. Originally, a penalty kick was denied before halftime, but shortly into the second half, Matty Mercado goes to get a 1-0, get them up 1-0, and that holds the rest of the game. Chicago's probably going to end up with the wooden spoon. I'm not too. There's not too much to go through other than the fact that they are at least keeping games tight and will probably be a lot better given an off season. But Seattle, this one was huge. They came away from this week in the top 8, albeit this might be a temporary condition. We'll see. But either way, it's at least a sign that they've stabilized themselves and have finally gotten themselves back up into a position where they can be a little more comfortable. The last and potentially one of the biggest impact games of the week was San Diego Wave dropping more points against Denver Summit. Denver, that point, at least keeps them from falling out of relevance completely in the playoff picture, though they are continuing to slide. The opportunity where they're going to have to make a move is coming, but they're at least still within range. San Diego Wave is the much bigger one here. They had the lead during the first half with Melanie Barcenas' goal, and then Yasmin Ryan, who is slowly getting herself in the Golden Boot conversation, puts in a goal right before the 1 hour mark, and San Diego's chance to go ahead was denied by VAR over 70 minutes in. What I'm looking at here is a San Diego team that just has found themselves faltering more and more on points and is allowing the lower teams 5 through 9 to start getting back into the picture on them. And that's got to be concerning because right now you're sitting at the 4 position, the lowest spot that gets a home game. So if San Diego continues on this spiral and can't figure out where their movement's going to be, they could find themselves on the road during the postseason or even potentially out of it all the way, though that would be unlikely. And this is a far cry from a team that was wielding the shield spot for quite some time. Right, moving on. Racing Louisville, big victory over Boston Legacy. They ran with this one at home. And Louisville finally looking like themselves again, at least getting back into rhythm. Right before halftime, Kayla Fisher gets a goal. And the second half basically just turns into a rout as Katie O'Kane scores on a PK. Kayla Fisher gets a second. Emma Sears scores at the 59th minute. So wasn't all within the first hour, but within 2 minutes of the first hour, it was 4-0. And they had just run with it. Boston Legacy picks up a garbage time goal at the end. But Louisville looked like the team that I thought they were going to be, where they were going to be a lot more competitive and potentially in the playoff mix. Admittedly, it was an expansion team, but Boston's looked good in the last few weeks. It is somewhat impressive to see them trying to pick up the pace and at least pull away from Chicago, where Louisville for a couple weeks was occupying the basement of this entire table. Good to see that they finally start taking those matters seriously. Portland Thorns still making the chase for home field positions. They took a big step towards it, claiming 3 points off of Orlando Pride, who did have their players back. Just no one was necessarily in rhythm, which made sense. You had players who had been active literally this week in international competition, going halfway around the world. You weren't going to see like the top performances from on that front. In any case, Portland took the lead early on. Well, not early on, but early on in the second half as Dana Castellanos gets the goal at 58. Elizabeth Lavalle levels the game just 5 minutes later, and for a moment, Orlando actually looks like they're going to steal a point off of a team in the playoff picture. But Kaya Hanks saves Portland at the last moment. 6 minutes into injury time, puts them ahead, and ends up functionally. I feel like they stole the remaining 2 points. This match was not impressive by Portland by any stretch. They have not looked impressive in a while, but it's an important 3 points right now as the games are getting a little more scarce. We are approaching the last 2 months of the season in a few weeks. So yeah, it's a difficult road, and so any points you can get, you gotta claim them. Just worked out well for Portland, at least on this front, while Orlando continues their spiral out of any playoff relevance. Moving on, North Carolina Courage opened the door for a lot of teams by claiming no points at home against Houston Dash. This was legitimately surprising. Ali Schlegel had given North Carolina the lead early, only to have it leveled about 6 minutes later. Match ends up even going into halftime. Evelyn Ije scores very early in the second half. And again, you'd think North Carolina has this. They're ahead on a team who has traded their top offensive talent. This would be the moment, but Houston actually responded with that trade coming up and benefiting them. The lineup looked a lot more fierce. Definitely shook up the system. And Clarissa Marissi ends up being a new difference maker for them, even with Kat Rayner no longer there. Marissi ends up picking up a goal in the 80th minute to level the game, and then an injury time goal to put Houston ahead. So on that front, big ups to Houston on this. It's still technically possible for them to make a run, but again, they are very far in the standings, at least in terms of the table. Points-wise, it doesn't seem as bad, but I don't know, I would have to see a lot of performance shift to really claim Houston back as a playoff contender again. For now, the relevance is really big for North Carolina, who still sits at 6th, but they now have teams chasing them all through in the 7, 8, 9 position where no one's super far off, and they've got head-to-heads coming up, some big head-to-heads coming up. So, North Carolina, much to do. And we'll close with Angel City and Washington Spirit, the nightcap, which I had been playing live before internet went out here, unfortunately. I was very disappointed by that. But, at the very least, I was able to use my phone data to watch on the ESPN app, and so I was able to see the half go through. Ali Sentner, this was a big day for her. Very impressive shot where she almost had 2 goals. Her goal late in the first half was waved off by VAR, but she was able to get the equalizer at 85 to counter the Trinity Rodman goal 20 minutes before. A lot of pressure from both teams. I had said going in, Angel City needed to at least recover a point. They needed over these next 2 between Washington and Gotham to get at least draws from both, if not a win from one. And points-wise, they did what they had to. They got their 1, which actually allowed them to gain on North Carolina because of their result. And Washington, these drop points for the 3rd straight week have caused a separation. They are now a good amount of points behind Gotham, and they're going to need to make some moves in the very near future to make that happen again. They'll have to hope for an upset as Angel City gets Gotham next week. Maybe some points dropped, allow Washington now at full strength to make a run. But that concludes the recaps for this week. I hope you enjoyed your games. Enjoy your games this week. As always, go Angels.